Imagine going through a breakup on national television and then dealing with the fallout also on national television, all while running a successful business you started from the ground up.
Yeah, well, that's just another day when you're the star of a reality TV show. Pittsburgh native and star of Bravo's Summer House, Carl Radke, is back in the PTL studios. Carl, it's been a while since we've seen you.
Yeah,
welcome back.
2 years. Thank you for having me.
And a lot has happened, right? The series continues.
Yes, things have continued. You know, I was engaged. I was in a relationship last time I was here, and I was engaged last year, but we no longer are together, which was, I think, for the better. We're both moving in different directions. It was very public on the show, which, you know, I guess it's good for the show, but also challenging for your real life.
I was going to ask, that has to be, because right here, I mean, it's the two of you, but how many cameras are also in there?
2 full big cameras, like kind of like what we're looking at right now.
So how do you allow yourself to be completely yourself, or do you feel like even in those heated moments when you're having an argument or you're having a discussion that you're trying to like reel yourself back and contain it a little bit?
I mean, early seasons, alcohol was definitely a big factor, so you kind of, you forget about the cameras and you don't care as much. You know, I haven't had a drink in a little over 3.5 years now. I've been filming the show sober and all that. So it's hard sometimes, but you get used to it. And you kind of just, they're kind of flies on the wall for your crazy life that you live.
When it's really, really personal, I mean, you know what you're getting into when you sign up for it, but until you're actually in it, and then like real life stuff is happening, do you have any moments where you think, why did I do this?
Oh, I mean, I think all of us have a few moments. I mean, it's some of the silly stuff that sometimes I wish wasn't in there. I mean, some explicit things, you know, swear words, I mean, farting, you know, weird bodily things that just happen that end up on the show.
That's human, though.
That's human. Yeah, I mean, there are things that I've said that I certainly cringe or wish I could take back, but I think we all have an opportunity. At the end of these seasons, we do what they call a reunion. And that's your chance to kind of clear the air, apologize, take accountability. And I've always really tried to watch myself back and try to learn from my behavior, because trust me, early seasons of Summer House, I was not very well liked because I was getting drunk and doing crazy things, and it was good for TV, but maybe not good for me.
You mentioned your sobriety. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because you're also with this brand, Loverboy, that you helped create. So tell us more about that seltzer brand and then your choice to move into sobriety.
Yeah, so being on a television show that was watched, you know, by a lot of women, Bravo is an incredible audience. You know, we were inspired by like Bethany Frankel. She had a brand called Skinny Girl.
Right.
You know, we were on a show where we drank a lot, and Kyle, my best friend, and his wife, they helped create Loverboy. But we saw an opportunity to drink a healthier alternative. You know, a lot of alcohol brands are sugary, a lot of calories, the hangover sucks. So we created a brand, Loverboy, that was 0 sugar, 90 calories, all natural ingredients. But during the creation of this, I realized that I was having a problem and struggling. And being kind of a face of an alcohol brand, working in the industry was challenging, but I did learn there's a lot of people that are sober that work at bars, restaurants, alcohol companies. So it gave me a lot of peace of mind that I could still do it. But then as a company, last year we launched Loverboy non-alcoholic.
Which is great too, because we've seen more and more like non-alcoholic beer and some seltzers now popping up. This is it's a wonderful way.
It's good to have alternatives.
And to be social too, if you want to be in that environment.
Exactly. I mean, I think the one thing, it's not necessarily for everybody that's in recovery. You know, for me, I'm comfortable drinking non-alcoholic drinks, but it's for those that just want to break. Women that are pregnant, men are driving or have an early morning. It's not just necessarily for sober, it's for everybody. And I'm just proud to be able to share it because, you know, it's a tasty beverage. I'm really a big part of this, you know, development of it. And then today we're doing a couple events to get some people to try it.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for being here, Carl.
Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, and we continued success.
Yes, and check out me on PNC Park today. I'm throwing out the first pitch.
Absolutely, Carl is throwing out that first pitch at the Pirates game tonight, so go and check it out.
How exciting. And for more info on Carl and what's next for Loverboy, just head to our website, PittsburghTodayLive.com.